houses that wouldn't have sold or would have sold for 5 figures are now luxury homes, small homes in that area.
I'd add Brickell to that as well. You see the new inventory that's coming up there, Aston Martin, Baccarat, Cipriani, St. Regis. There's a huge demand, and most of those buildings are selling out very, very well pre-construction. I think it goes to what Julian was talking about before. People are willing to buy now to have something in 3 to 4 years when coming here. But those buyers want a super luxury product, which really wasn't on Brickell before. But that whole Brickell skyline is going to change and have a whole new tier of properties.
I'm not an expert on the statistic of people that have returned to the office, but 55% gets thrown around a lot. And I think that the buyers now, specifically with the increase in traffic in Miami, which is now starting to affect us greatly, it's become far more important for their drive time. So anyone that would have been on Upper North Bay Road, a lot of my wealthy clients are now looking in Coconut Grove, which I still think is undervalued because of the schools and the distance in travel time to the upcoming office towers.
So knowing this, do you guys position
Let me just add one thing real quick, and it's not even location. It's build some. They're not making any more land. There's a huge demand, especially in the sectors that I see for real big lots in South Florida.
You're seeing that in Pinecrest. It's incredible. I don't think we ever thought there would be homes that were selling $10 million in Pinecrest.
There are many of them
when the
now.
first one sold, I was like, oh my gosh, that's insane. And now it's like every week there's a $10 million home selling in Pinecrest. It's absolutely
And
incredible.
going up everywhere. You're right, George.
So how are developers getting involved with this? Are they trying to buy up land and stack on top of that?
They are
And
definitely
now the
buying them.
consumer is battling with them.
I think the single-family home developers are looking for old homes on good land, wherever it is that they want to build. There's no more land. So they're paying good money for land, and yeah, they're rebuilding.
Although a lot of in the luxury market, I'd say in the last 12 months, the majority of sales were finished homes. People that are moving to Miami that don't want to get involved in the construction and the headaches and the horror stories that they hear. And I think pending sales on vacant land is almost at a standstill until about 3 months ago. Construction costs have come down only slightly. They're not expected to drop too much, but the general contractors are definitely calling in more, looking for bids. And so I think it's still going to be a very strong market for general contractors and architects, but definitely end users and now developers are definitely getting back into the market for land because prices have probably corrected about 5 to 10% on average.
What's some advice that you would give, not a new agent, but someone that wants to get into the super luxury? How do they get involved? Is it certain marketing? What are the conversations with the people they're talking to?
Luck.
Now, Liz has luck, but she works really hard. So I do think luck is involved, but I think you have to be out there and you have to go to events and network and you have to learn, like we just did, about all the topics that are interesting and relevant to the luxury buyers. And sometimes that involves a lot of time and a lot of boring computer classes, as we heard, but you have to go and see where the people are that are buying these places and network, I think.
I'm going to say this, and I say this every time I talk outside of South Florida. Miami is the most competitive real estate market in the history of the world right now, I believe. Call me crazy. What would I tell a new agent coming into the sector? I would tell him to really think hard and ask himself, what is he doing to put himself in a position, to get that listing, not only from an education perspective, which I think is super important. When you're in front of that situation, they are going to ask you, have you sold a luxury property before? And when you say, instead of saying no, you have to say, hey, let me tell you what I've done to prepare myself for this situation. So number one, prepare yourself. And number two, there's an old saying in Spanish, let me tell you who you hang out with and I'll tell you who, you are, let me tell you who you hang out with and I'm going to tell you who you end up selling to.
I think the more competitive that it gets, the easy answer is that you have to shrink your farm area. And so as an example, please don't come to Miami Beach, but let's pick a Cocoa Plum as an example. There might be 300 homes. And normally you might target an area in a farm area of like 1,000 to 2,000 homes. Instead, target 300 homes, send them 300 letters, make 300 phone calls, send 300 gifts. And when you finally start to get 1 or 2 listings, and there might only be like 20 homes listed in the area. When you get to 6 or 7 listings, you have 40% of the market. And then from that, you can expand your farm area and grow. But if you want to break into it, shrink your farm area to a point where you actually get some listings, and from that, you can grow.
So would that area be saturated with agents wanting to get into the luxury market?
If you use that example that I just gave you and went into Coco Plum, you'd see there's 20 listings and there's probably 14 agents. So no one has a dominant share. So that means there is room for an agent to move in and get a listing here and there. And then most of those agents, like myself, have a very big farm area. So when agents come in and target a very small specific area of my farm area, they can usually start taking listings away from it.
I think another way for agents too is to partner with an agent who has a track record. And that's truly the easiest way to do it, because once you can land one, then you have something to go to the next guy with and say, I did this at this property, give me a shot at yours.
And that's the beauty of teams too. So if you're starting out and you want to be in that arena, it's good to find a team within your company that does luxury sales and see if there's any way that you can either join them or learn from them or help, do open houses, do anything that will get you in that sphere.
So last question. Besides farming, having laser focus on the area you're doing, what could someone do today that's going to give them an edge, set them apart from others?
I think it's customer service, is it? The luxury buyer wants to be attended to. The luxury buyer wants knowledge. They want to feel confident. They need to trust you, and they need discretion. So I think discretion is key. I'm sure we all know of people that have not had discretion and they didn't get that buyer again or their friends. So you have to be careful and you have to be very willing and able to work at whatever hour they are available. So if your phone turns off at a certain hour and they call you an hour later and you're not there, that's not good.
Wait, Monica, you don't do that for all your customers?
I do. Even for the rentals, I do.
Go for it.
I would say, people will work with you, whether it's a seller or buyer, because they like you and they trust you. Like is obviously the personality, you have things in common. Trust comes from them understanding that you have the experience and you know what you're doing. And then I think everyone has their own shtick, their own sort of like personality. And like Matthew, one of my colleagues, is sitting there, and we went to a listing about 6 months ago, and I swear to God, the woman said, I've had 50 realtors knock on the door after it expired. And so we went a couple times, and so to get that listing, to set ourselves apart, we got lucky. There was a small horse stable at the back that was grandfathered in. It was in unincorporated Dade, just south of Coral Gables. And I said to her, listen, we're going to rent a horse and ride around on a video. If any of those other 50 brokers come back and say they're going to do that, you hire them. And we worked a week later, and she said, no one else talked about horses. I said, well, I'm going to have them here next week. So we got on horses, we rode around. I swear to God, 2 weeks later, this guy's flicking through his iPad, and his 9-year-old looks over his shoulder and goes, and there was a horse right in front of the house. I want to go see that house. And we had a bidding war within 2 weeks, and we sold it.
So final comments. I see we're out of time. Secret superpowers, consistency, and failing fast. The faster you fail, you find out what works. And the name of the game here is consistency in marketing and follow up and a bunch of other avenues.
Great, thank you. Congratulations on all your success, and thanks for being here.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.